Hello everyone. Today we're going to work with the microbit again. We will be making a counter that can let you change a number through addition, subtraction, or even multiplication or division. So we're going to name our project Counter. When we create the program, an onStart command and a forever loop will already be in our coding space. First, we can delete the forever loop because we don't need it for this project. So we'll highlight it and then just press backspace. In this program, creating our variable is the first thing we want to do. To do this, we go to the Variables menu and we select Make a Variable. We'll call this variable Counter. It's important to name variables according to what kind of information they hold, because this makes them easier to understand. For example, if we just named our variable x and somebody else read our code, they would have no idea what the variable's purpose was. Now that we've made a variable, a few new commands have appeared in the Variables menu. We're going to drag setCounter to 0 inside of the Start block. Now, the counter variable will be created and set to 0 right when we start the microbit. We want the microbit to display counter for the whole program. To display the counter, we should first open the Basics menu. The Show Number command allows you to display a number on the microbit LED board. We want the microbit to display counter though, so we will need to use the counter variable. From the Variables menu, we can drag the counter block of code on top of the 0 bubble to replace it. So we'll drag the counter block of code on top of the 0 bubble to replace it. This bubble represents the counter variable itself. Now, when the microbit starts, it will create the counter variable with the setCounter to 0 command, and it will display it with the Show Number Counter command. One of the main purposes of variables is being able to change the information stored in them. In this project, we want to be able to increase the counter by 1 each time we press button A. Pressing button A is a type of input, so we'll go to the Input menu. If you remember, input can tell the microbit to do something. From the Input menu, we'll select On button A pressed and drag this into our coding space. In this project, pressing button A is the input that will tell the microbit to increase counter by 1. To change counter's value, we should go to the Variables menu. And we should drag setCounter to 0 inside of the On button A pressed block. Set means that we're replacing that value with the value in the bubble after 2. Right now, that value is 0. Because we want the counter to increase by 1, we set counter equal to counter plus 1. If you think about it, counter plus 1 is a math operation because we're adding two numbers together. So we need to go to the Math menu to find this command. We're adding two numbers together, so we can drag the 0 plus 0 bubble of code. We want to set counter equal to counter plus 1, so we'll replace the 0 with the 0 plus 0. We need to replace the first 0 with counter because that's the number we're adding to. Remember, the counter variable can be found in the Variables menu. So we'll take counter and replace the first 0 with it. Now, we need to change that second 0 to a 1 because we're adding 1 to counter. It's important that we set counter equal to counter plus 1 because this adds 1 to the value that is already stored in counter. Counter to the right of the 2 makes sure the counter is still storing itself, and the plus 1 is just adding another 1 to the value it already holds. You can test this. If counter was already 5, we would be setting counter to 5 plus 1. So now counter equals 6. We know this works because 5 plus 1 equals 6. Next time you press A, it would do 6 plus 1, which equals 7. So we can tell this line of code works. So now we've updated our variable. But the person using the microbit won't be able to see it unless we update the screen too. We need to make the microbit show the number counter again. We're going to do this the same way we did earlier. We'll go to the Basics menu and drag Show Number under our Set Counter command. We need to replace the 0 with counter again to make sure counter is the number we're showing. We can find the counter variable in the Variables menu. We'll just drag this to replace the 0 in Show Number. Now you're all set. You made a counter that can increase by 1 each time you press button A. If you're using the online microbit, you can play with this by pressing the play arrow beneath the microbit image to the left. Or if you're using the physical microbit, feel free to download this code onto it to use this program hands-on.